Am I going to get paid? That is a big question that comes through from student accommodation landlords. Whether you're new or you've been in the game for the longest time, I think that is the biggest question that you will face, especially if you have NSFAS students on your property. So I wanted to cover, in this video, I wanted to cover all the different screenings that you can do depending on the type of student that you have, that you're busy, that you want to house. What are the different screenings that you need to do? What are the documents that you need to ask for to ensure the best success rate? Now, nothing is guaranteed. Anything can be cancelled down the line. But here are some tips and tricks on how to screen your students before they move into your property. My name is Rita van Rooyen, and I'm the CEO of a company called My Student House. We have thousands of students across the country, and we are a rental management agent for student accommodation, and we help landlords to find their first property. We place the students, we get accreditation, and we manage the students for them. Now, back to this most important question, and the answer is always a little bit grey. Will I get paid? You will get paid. When is usually the question, the biggest question. So when you plan for that, obviously you need to be really good and disciplined about your cash flow, but that's another question for another video. Right now, how do you screen these students? Because I think if your screening is correct, 95% of the time you will get paid, just a question of when. So first of all, what are the different types of students, and then how do you screen each one of them? Now I'm going to start with the easy one first, okay, which is your private bursaries. Now, a private bursary, just for me, means that it's not an NSFAS bursary and it's not a privately funded student. It's all these other bursaries that you get. You get Eskom bursaries, you get Department of Water Affairs bursaries, CETA bursaries, Fundi bursaries. So there's quite a lot of other institutions that offer bursaries to students. And those ones are very simple. As soon as a student tells you, listen, I have a bursary, then they say that it's not an NSFAS bursary, then the first thing you need to ask them is for their bursary letter. And on that bursary letter will be the contact person at the bursary office that you have to call immediately. You need to ask them a few questions. Number one, confirm the student that, and they also have to give you their IDs, obviously, and proof of address, which is normal. They always ask for IDs and proof of address. But you have to confirm that the student, that ID number that you got, is covered by the bursary. The second thing is you need to understand when are they going to pay you and how much do they pay for accommodation. Now, some of these bursaries, they give a budget. So they'll say, okay, you have a 90,000 rands a year. But off that, accommodation comes last. So first of all, the course fees must be paid. Then food allowances, then transport allowances, and last at the end, whatever's left then goes to accommodation. And some of them have a specific amount that they'll give for accommodation. So very important that you talk to that bursary office as early as possible in the process and understand if that amount will cover the actual rent that you charge in your property. The second thing is that you need to then also ask them about accreditation. Do you need to be accredited by the university? Do you need to be accredited by NSFAS? What kind of accreditation do they need for your property, if they need anything at all? Otherwise, you're not going to get paid, all right? Or you're going to struggle. I had a case like that where we ended up going back and forth for 2 years before we got paid for a specific student because of that. And then the third important thing for those bursaries is, when are they going to pay? Some of them split it into 2 years, and you have to give them an invoice, 2 different invoices or 1 invoice. Some of them pay in the beginning of the year for the whole year. All of them have different things. And what do they cover? Do they cover the deposit as well, or does the student have to pay the deposit? Do you need a deposit if it's one of those students? All of those questions is what you need to decide for yourself and find out from that bursary officer. Cool, so that was the easy one. The next easy one I think the most difficult is the NSFAS ones, is private or privately funded student, self-funded student. Let's call them self-funded students. So obviously, who's going to pay for that rent? Okay, not the student. The parents are going to pay, right? So in this instance, you're basically screening the parent more than you are screening the student. So you need an ID and you need a proof of address and a proof of income for the parent. So they have to give you 3 months bank statements, the parents, or a salary slip. And even if they do give you a salary slip, you know, you need to see that it goes into their bank account, and then you can kind of see whether they'll be able to afford your rent. The next thing is obviously you need to see if what's their credit record like. You don't want to have someone, it looks, on paper it looks like they can afford it, but if you look at their credit record, they might have judgments on it already. They might have, you can see that their credit score is really low. And then if they don't pay their rent and you threaten them with legal action or their credit record, they don't care because it's bad already. So, you know, why would that be a reason for them to actually pay you? So how do you get that credit score? You can get a credit score from tpn.co.za, which is a credit bureau specifically around rentals, and you can see whether this person is a good payer or not. So those are the things that you would definitely need from a self-funded student. And then of course the parent must sign the lease, or the student can sign the lease, but the parent needs to sign surety for that lease so that you can take them to task if that rent doesn't get paid. And then the last one, NSFAS students. So NSFAS students is an interesting one because you obviously want to get their IDs and proof of addresses, right? Because you want to know that at least the person that you're dealing with is the person that is on the NSFAS portal. Now, we always ask for, in the past with this pilot and going into the next few years, as things happen, I'll update you, but for now, we also ask for them to send us a screenshot of their NSFAS status on the portal. So they have a portal that they can log into, and on there, their statuses goes through different phases, and we will accept a student once the status shows provisionally funded or funding eligible, depending on how early you are in the process. But eventually they have to show us funding eligible. They won't be approved or anything like that. You know, that only comes much later because there is a process that NSFAS also follows. And even if it shows funding eligible or it shows provisionally funded, it can still be revoked at any point in time. So NSFAS likes to change their requirements quite a bit. Just to give you some examples, 1 year everybody was approved, then they brought in the requirement about the credits. So you needed a minimum of 60 credits to be enrolled for 60 credits to qualify for an accommodation allowance. Okay. Now there's also that you need to check the N+1 rule. What does that mean? It means that if your course is a 3-year degree and you are you've done the 3 years, you're now on your 4th year because you might have failed some subjects, they will still cover that 4th year. But anything more than that, they will not cover, they will not pay for that course. They will also not pay for a second degree. So if the person already has another degree that NSFAS paid for, they will not pay for a second degree. It's very important to know that. And then of course there's also a result. So if you're working with a second year student, you need to ask for if you're working with a second year student, you also need to ask for their academic results, because, and this changes every year, some years you have to have 50% average to qualify for a bursary. Then other years it used to be 55. I think at the moment it's 60%. that they have to have for them to qualify for that, for accommodation, or actually for NSFAS in general. So never mind accommodation. So very important to check that. So just to recap, you need to check the academic results for second year. You have to check the NSFAS status on the portal. And you have to check, is it the second or third year, and the N+1 rule that you have to check before you can take in any NSFAS students. And even then, later, so all of that might be fine, and then their parents submit SARS documents, okay? They submit their SARS annual returns, and whoops, now the student doesn't qualify anymore because their parents didn't declare all their income to NSFAS, but in SARS, now they declared everything, or the employers might have, and guess what? They don't qualify anymore. They have they're too high on the income scale. So all of a sudden, the student has been what we call defunded. And then you need to decide very quickly, have a discussion with that student. Are you going to come in as a private student and switch over to that, or are you going to move out, right? And then you also have students that are on appeal, and that's up to you whether you will allow for that appeal process to continue, because that could go on until the end of the year. So you might be out of pocket, you might not get rent if you allow a student that is busy going through an appeal process to stay with you. Okay, I have allowed people to stay with us that was in that appeal process, and it's just really about the reasons why. What is the appeal about? Was it because of a document that you uploaded incorrectly, or is it because you failed last year? I know the failing thing is not going to work, so I won't let you stay. But if it's a document and I can clearly see that you have a legitimate document, then definitely, I'll let you stay, and we'll write it out and see if we can help you. Because it's also not nice to put a child back onto the streets and into a bad accommodation, if you know that they are legit, they're really out here at the university to study. So you don't want to put them in the streets. I don't think any parent would like to do that to another mother's child, you know what I mean? So definitely important for you to check the appeals and decide if you're going to keep them on, if they're going through an appeal or not. Then there's also the another thing that I almost forgot about is the addresses. Some institutions, and again, this is going to change now with the NSFAS thing coming in, but where we are right now, distance from the university is also still a thing. So, for instance, at Northlink, they won't give you accommodation. You don't qualify for accommodation if your home address is within 10 kilometers of the institution. Okay. And then some universities don't have that requirement at all. UWC, Poch, doesn't matter, you can still stay. And then you have others like CPUT, Cape Peninsula University of Technology, that requires you to be outside 60 kilometers from the university, which is really, really far. I mean, how do you even travel 60 kilometers in traffic every single day to go to university? But whether that will stay or go is another question altogether. And for them to prove where they stay, obviously you need to get their proof of address. And they don't want, and a lot of students will give you like an affidavit that says they're staying in this ward, in this rural area, and so on. The problem with that is the university doesn't accept it, and they need to have a physical, proper document showing the address. Now, their argument is that every student must have a bank account, which is correct. If you're in NSFAS, if you're an NSFAS beneficiary, you do need a bank account, and on the bank account is your address. So they want that to be submitted for proof of address. Very, very important. And then yeah, I think that is it for NSFAS students. So a little bit more complicated than the rest. But if you go through that and you do it correctly, you can really, really benefit and help somebody in the process, Some things we don't ask for NSFAS students. We don't ask for proof of affordability for the rent because, hello, they are an NSFAS beneficiary because they can't afford the rent. They can't afford any of these things. So definitely we don't even ask for bank statements and all kinds of things like that because it's not really necessary. Now, going after the pilot, what we've seen with some of the students or properties or universities, not properties, universities really, that are on this pilot, is that you don't really actually need any kind of documentation to ask from an NSFAS student because NSFAS does the heavy lifting for you. So if somebody is on their portal and they have all the student information, so they have the proof of address, they have the IDs, they have the N+1 information, they have all of that on the NSFAS portal already. So from the time that you are just running your property on that portal, the change we believe that we've seen coming through is that the screening of those students are really not going to be a thing anymore, because as long as they're on the portal, and the portal will only offer them accommodation once they qualify for accommodation. They won't be able to book your place if they don't qualify. Then you can just accept those students, and you can just you can see them on the portal, you can see that they've applied, and you can accept them in, and you don't need to stress about all of this screening. So as much as there are huge teething issues this year with that pilot, and I can talk for 6 hours about that, at least there's hope at the end of the tunnel, and I really hope they can get this right, so that all of this guesswork and people giving you falsified documents and all of that nonsense can be completely eliminated, hopefully, through this process. So really interested and excited to see how that is going to work out. Well, I hope you understand a little bit more about what goes into screening a student before you put them into your property. And if you would like for us to manage your house or your building, then give us a shout out, send us an email to getinfo@mystudenthouse.co.za, and we'll have a chat with you. We can do a consultation and to get you started, and let's help some students become future leaders. And on this voting day, which I'm recording this at, hopefully one day they can be the people that we have to vote for, and they'll be good at it. So yay, bye.